So whether it's friends or family, there is grief because the person that you know or knew, they are still there. They're just harder to find.
Hello, and welcome to Not Born Yesterday, a podcast dedicated to older adults and the challenges and joys of aging. I'm Miriam Goodman.
Not Born Yesterday is brought to you by Next Village SF, a local nonprofit providing older adults in the Northeast neighborhood of San Francisco with support to help age in place. I'm Lynn Winter-Gross.
We have all been there. A close friend or family member seems to be forgetful, asks the same question several times, or tells you the same story over and over again. Or you notice he gets confused when paying for something or has sudden mood changes. Perhaps she seems confused about the date or where you are, or even if it's a place that should be familiar. Is this dementia, and does it mean it will get worse?
Here to answer these difficult questions is Mary Hulme of Moonstone Geriatrics. Mary is a licensed social worker who assists older adults, family members, friends, and loved ones by addressing their immediate needs while also thinking about future needs and options. She holds a master's degree in social welfare and a clinical license from the Board of Behavioral Sciences. Mary, welcome to Not Born Yesterday.
Thank you for having me.
First, we know that dementia is not a natural part of aging, but what are the most common early symptoms and specific behaviors of dementia that we should notice, and how do we as friends address them?
Well, the behaviors, one of the most common ones is memory problems. We see people having trouble remembering things, remembering appointments, remembering where they're supposed to be going, what they're supposed to be doing. There's also problems with organizational skills, keeping track of things. We see difficulty there with managing the finances, doing taxes, keeping track of medications. There's also changes sometimes in gait and ambulation and balance, how people are able to move around. Difficulty with executive functioning. I think a very good example of that is if you and I were to go on a trip, we pull the suitcase out, usually put it on the bed, and our ability to fill that suitcase, putting in shoes, putting in clothes, putting in toiletries, that ability to spatially make what we need fit is something that also we can see changes with. And also difficulty with directions, with figuring out where to go and how to do it. So those are some of the more common changes we see.
So as a friend, how do you deal with something like that? If somebody can't remember, well, where are we supposed to meet and what time are we supposed to meet? And then ask that again 5 minutes later, well, where are we supposed to meet? What time are we supposed to meet? Mm-hmm. How do you deal with that as a friend?
As a friend, one thing I would not do is say, you've already asked me that 4 times. That's not helpful for anyone. And so I think if you're a close friend, if you feel comfortable, you can ask them, have you noticed some changes with your memory? Are you having trouble, or have you noticed you're having difficulty with anything? And just try to open up a conversation to see where they are. Oftentimes, one of the first things to go is insight. And so insight is the ability to realize that you are having problems. Now, generally in early dementia, people do know. Sometimes people don't want to talk about it. Sometimes people do not want to deal with it. But other times people are relieved about being able to say, yes, I keep losing my keys and I lost my car the other day. And I think you have to go by their response and wherever they are psychologically and emotionally and physically in terms of how aware they are that there are changes happening and how much they want to or do not want to open up and talk about it.
It seems they may be aware that they're losing their keys, but not so much aware that they've asked the same question over and over again.
By the time somebody is asking repetitive questions like that, in my opinion, they're not aware. Their dementia has progressed. I have a client right now who I see every week, and I saw him yesterday, as a matter of fact. He cannot remember anything. And so I go every week to fill his medications. I actually keep his medications because I'm concerned that he may overtake them or get into the bottles. So once a week I go, I fill the medications. And every time I come, yesterday I had to take him to the dentist. And by the time I get to the door, front door, and I say, okay, do you have your keys? Do you have your phone? Do you have your mask? That's really all he needs to bring, and his little wallet. And between the front door and my car, which is usually parked right there, he has forgotten where we're going. And so along the way, I usually hear in our 20-minute drive at least 4 times. So where are we going? So what are we doing today?
When you mentioned that he doesn't remember anything, does that apply to long-term memory as well? Because I know my father had Alzheimer's, and it was long before there were any of these strategies or anything that anybody really knew about it. And I remember my mother said she took out old photo albums, and they went through them together, and my father remembered everything. And yes, she said at the end they both were crying, but I just wonder, is that a good strategy to it sort of reminds the person that they're still alive and they're still vital and they still have a memory. Are there other strategies we can do to sort of build them up?
Well, I think definitely it's the more recent memories are the ones that are slipping away. The longer memories, I mean, I have clients, that they can remember exactly what they ate on their wedding day 52 years ago, but they can't remember what they had for breakfast 2 hours ago. And so absolutely. And when I drive with John, or when I visit John or my other clients with more advanced dementia, I often will bring up, so tell me about your childhood. Where did you grow up? What about your parents? And that will bring people to life. And so with John, I do hear the same story about his parents and what his dad did and what his mom did and where he lived and where he grew up. I've heard it maybe 50 times, but that's okay. That's okay, because it makes him feel listened to, and it's a happy memory for him. Now, if people have unhappy memories, then we need to sort of not continue that conversation, of course.
How do you know if somebody's having problems that they need more help with around the house? How do you know if they're leaving the stove on, or you can't just go into somebody's house and check it out if it's a friend?
Right. That's tough. It's easy for me because I go in and do full assessments. But one, like we talked about earlier, based on behaviors, if you're noticing they're forgetting to meet with you, if they're missing appointments, if they're running late because they can't find their wallet, those kinds of things, you can try to talk to them about it. But again, they may not have the insight. My client, John, I have people coming in and cleaning it about once a month when I take him to an appointment, because he thinks his house is spotless. His house is not spotless. And so if there's family that's involved, to reach out to them if they're close. But that's a tough one. You just have to start looking for subtle clues. When you go to the house, just, go get a glass of water and take a look at the kitchen. See if there's changes in housekeeping. Is it dusty? Is it not getting vacuumed? And if you see mail piling up, that kind of thing, that's a concern. Are the bills getting paid? Are they getting missed? So looking at housekeeping, upkeep, I would look in the fridge if you can. You want to see, is there food in there? And is it expired? That's another big sign. And so those are little things. You use the bathroom to see how is that looking. So little things that you can do that they're not going to notice that you're doing or feel that you're intruding, that can help you figure out what's going on.
One of the things that I find is hard is dealing with my own emotions when I'm with somebody that has early dementia or Alzheimer's, the sadness that I feel.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's a definite factor for so many people, whether it's families or friends. There's a grieving that goes on. There is a real bereavement. And so whether it's friends or family, there is grief, because the person that you know or knew, they are still there. They're just harder to find.
what happens when you realize that this person does need help that we're talking about? And let's say you're friends of 5 or 10 years. You don't know their adult children. You don't know even where they live. I mean, obviously you've talked about them. Maybe you've never met them. I mean, what is the moment when we should pick up the phone and first try to find out the phone number of the adult child? But when we call, and when are we being intrusive and when are we being helpful?
That's a difficult answer. It's a very long gray line. I think really safety is a huge concern for me. So if I see somebody that has gotten lost or wandered off or left the stove on and you see this blackened pan, that's when I really feel like, whether they want it or not, that you are doing what's in the best interest of them. And that's what reaching out to whoever you might reach out to.
You talked earlier about how sometimes a patient has a change of reality. They imagine things are going to happen that aren't, and there are other things. Now, are there different kinds of dementia, and do they have different forms, and are there different ways of treating that person as a friend?
Mm-hmm. There's many, many different kinds of dementia. Alzheimer's disease is actually the most common, and the greatest risk factor for Alzheimer's disease is actually age. So the older you are, the greater your risk. There's vascular dementia, there's Lewy body dementia, which we all heard about with Robin Williams. There's frontal temporal dementia, which is the frontal temporal part of the brain, which really affects people's social skills, if you will. That's the part of the brain that keeps you from saying to your neighbor, you might be thinking it, but from keeping from saying out loud, boy, you got fat over Christmas. Those kinds of verbal outbursts, sort of the inability to manage emotions.
To end on a high note, is there anything that you can say that gives us hope as friends of people with early dementia or progressive dementia?
I think so many friends get support, reach out, do some research, talk to people. There's so much information out there. So that's the first thing I think to do for you, so that you can help be the best friend you can be. And I will say a lot of my clients, they do struggle early on. I mean, they know something's wrong. They know they keep losing the car. They know they keep missing appointments, and that's a very tough time. And so during that earlier time, to just really be supportive and to do whatever you can to help out, whether it's talking to family, whether it's talking to the doctor, whether it's picking them up instead of having them drive to make their life easier. So to focus on that. And then my clients will progress, and they will get to the point where they really don't know. They don't know that they're losing things. They don't know that they're not managing the finances. They don't know that they can't figure out their medications. But in a sense, many of my clients, it's almost a Buddhist sort of state of being, because they're constantly living in the moment, constantly. And some of them do have anxiety, and there is some medication we can do, to try to calm that anxiety down. But a lot of my clients, actually, they're in the moment. And when you're in the moment, you really can't worry about things, because in order to worry, you have to retain what you're worrying about. So we'll go back to my client, John. He is the most cheerful gentleman. He has no clue where he's going. He has no idea what he's doing, but he's constantly happy, chatty, conversing. When we go to the dentist, they've known him for 25 years. They always hug him. And so he's in the best mood all the time.
So I think the bottom line for what you're saying for all of us is, if we have a friend or a family member in this situation, we should keep seeing them. We should keep taking them for walks or go to dinner or something like that. We shouldn't abandon them.
You should not abandon them. You should keep seeing them. And I would add, be very careful, go by their cues. So for a lot of people with dementia in the later stages, social situations can cause a lot of anxiety. And so I think to take your cues, it may be that they really can't do lunch. It's too noisy, it's too confusing, and it just causes them to feel anxious. So then maybe just a walk through the park, or meeting for coffee, or going to their house for coffee. You just have to meet them where they are and react based on the cues that they give to you.
Thank you so much, Mary. It was a pleasure talking to you again. And thank you for your great advice. That was Mary Hulme of Moonstone Geriatrics.
Thank you for having me.
In news you can use today, we're talking about misconceptions. If you watch television at all, you've probably seen a comedy sketch or two that shows older adults unable to handle technology. There's that funny one about Alexa, and others about people confused by their cell phones. But if you also remember the ad from 30 years ago, "Help, I've fallen and I can't get up," you probably forgot that it was actually about technology for older people. The product was early tech for sure, but it was designed to help people stay independent. And if it's been harder for seniors to adapt to all the new technologies, we know that millions of us have smartphones, computers, and learned how to use Zoom during COVID. We've even figured out how to create and listen to podcasts.
The good news is that a wave of innovation and new technology is making it possible for seniors to continue to age at home. 30 years after Help, I've Fallen, new devices are more sophisticated, and venture capital for startups aimed at aging in place is attracting hundreds of millions of dollars. Consumer-focused technology is changing healthcare delivery in so many ways, from the patient visiting the doctors in person less often to a method where healthcare is in our back pocket all day long.
New assistive devices with seniors that detect movement or others with remote monitoring can now alert caregivers or family members if the wearer is in distress. For seniors who are less physically mobile and may lack transportation and companionship, this idea is even more crucial. Technology can greatly benefit older people, making it convenient and safe to connect with healthcare professionals and follow virtual health plans from the comfort of their own homes. It's a trend with potential, but the bad news is there are privacy consequences. While technology can preserve quality of life, we don't yet know if there will be predatory advertising and unauthorized data sharing. Who's reading these messages that patients send to their doctors besides the relevant medical staff? If these reports are sent back to the manufacturer of the device for the analysis, with whom might they be sharing the information?
You don't have to be a whiz at technology to understand the importance of privacy and control over personal data. Researchers have found that many older adults are willing to provide sensitive data if it meant getting meaningful feedback on the status of their health. But at the same time, they said they were reluctant to share data of other categories due to hacking or data loss concerns. So let's celebrate the new and helpful when it comes to technology. But if they concern you, consider the privacy issues before you sign up.
And that's our podcast for today. Our thanks to Mary Hulme of Moonstone Geriatrics. You can learn more about Next Village SF at their website, nextvillagesf.org. Our theme music is from Hook Sounds, and Jason Dahlstad is our engineer. And thank you for listening. We'd love to hear what you would like us to discover and discuss. Please contact us at nbypodcast@nextvillagesf.org. Be well, stay strong, and remember, you weren't born yesterday. I'm Lynn Winter Gross.
And I'm Miriam Goodman.